Welcome back, everyone. If you've been watching some of my recent videos, I've been doing a lot of yarding logs out with this F-250 pickup. It's a low-cost, effective way to get logs out. I prefer to use my tractor with a winch, but my tractor's not at this property. And there are a lot of people who don't have tractors. Maybe they can't afford a tractor, or maybe they don't have enough use for one to justify buying one. If you don't have a tractor or heavy equipment, you can accomplish a lot with one of these. On my latest videos, I've been getting questions about the details of the equipment I've been using when I do this. Today I decided I'd do a video going over those tools that I use. The blocks, the cables, the chains, the chokers. Assuming you already have a vehicle, doesn't have to be an F-250. If you saw my videos from a year ago, I was using a Ford Ranger. But assuming you have a vehicle, it doesn't cost that much to get set to have an effective yarding operation. Right here I've got one more grand fir I need to yard out. It's a pretty big tree. It has this big root ball on it still. That should be fun to cut that off and watch it fall down. We'll yard that out today. Then at the end we'll go over the tools that I use to do it. All right, that takes care of this spot. Now to take down the equipment. The heart of the operation is the long line. And if that's the heart of the operation, the block would be like the lungs of the operation. What? That made no sense at all. Forget that. But it is an important part of the operation. Some of you know I'm here at this property I have that's far away from home. I came here for the last half of the summer, maybe a little longer than that, and I only brought with me the essentials that I need. Part of those essentials was the complete outfit for doing pickup logging. I just brought the things that over time I've learned are the most useful, and a few extras that weren't essential. I think these items that I brought are good things to go over. It would be a good place for someone to start. These are the items that I would recommend someone start with. Starting with the long line, which is just a choker. I had it made, it's just a 100-foot long choker, an eye on one end and a regular bell on the other end. Our local logging and industrial supply shop, they'll make these in whatever length you want them. They'll put whatever you want at the end. You can have an eye on one end and an eye on the other, or a bell on one end, a bell on the other, whatever configuration you want, or just a nubbin on one end. Pulling with a pickup, you could get away with a 3/8" cable. That's what I used to use. But after they get some wear on them, I have broke them before. You could go up to a 1/2" cable, but they're heavier and you just don't need that big of a cable. I like to use a 7/16 cable. It's strong enough that you're not going to break it. It's light enough for dragging around through the woods. The 7/16 is a good in-between. I find they're less likely to kink than a 3/8". They're more stiff, but it's not too stiff. Just a good all-around size. I've used different lengths, but I find that the 100-foot is just an all-around good length. Sometimes it'll be too short, sometimes it'll be too long, but it's a good compromise if you're only going to have one. That's my go-to length, and that's the only one I brought. So for someone just starting out, I would start with a 100-foot cable. Use that for a while, see how it works for you. You might find out that that's too short or it's too long. Then after you get some experience, you can buy the length or lengths that works for you. But I would start out with 100 feet. There's the heart of the operation. Now the main block, which has nothing that even resembles lungs at all. That was ridiculous. My main block is a 6" block, which is actually bigger than necessary for doing this. You'd be just fine with a 5" block. That works fine on a 3/8 or a 7/16 cable. The advantage of this is it's lighter to pack around, they're less expensive. At a bare minimum, you could do a lot of things with just one block. If you're just starting out and you want to go minimalist, start out with one block. But 2 blocks gives you a lot more options. One for your main block, then another one to maybe redirect a log temporarily one direction before making it go another direction. Or if your log is too heavy to pull on one line, you might want to put another block in there to double your power. I've demonstrated that on a lot of my other videos. Another reason to go with the smaller block. This one has a patch job in it that my uncle welded for me. He did a very nice job on it. That was caused by using a 3/8 inch cable. This block is too big for a 3/8 inch cable. Even the 7/16, this block is a little bit big. What would happen is, occasionally when I would start pulling on it, instead of the cable lifting the block up so it rides on the pulley, it would go like this. It would start pulling this way. Instead of riding through the pulley, it came this way and chewed up the side of the block. It wore a notch in the side of the block here. And when it does that, it can cause this kind of a kinking spiral in the cable. When you start pulling, you have to be careful with that on these bigger blocks especially. That's one of the advantages of the smaller block. That's less likely to happen. Now we'll go get the chokers that I have hooked onto a tree up here that I had the block hooked up to. I have 4 chokers all hooked together because I needed to go a distance up the hill to find a tree to anchor to. These ones were closer, but I didn't want to put it on them because I didn't want to scar them up. 4 choker lengths up the hill, I found a tree that the bears already tore up, so I hooked it onto that one. For these chokers, I use 1/2 inch, partly because that's just what I have, and I've had them for a long time that I used for something else a long time ago. I had 4 of these 10-foot chokers. Now I only have 3. The other one disappeared. And as far as I can tell, what happened was I was at the grocery store and it jumped out of the back of my truck and ran away. That's the only logical conclusion I can come up with as to why it just suddenly disappeared. I also have an 8-foot choker. This one is just about wore out, needs to be replaced. The older they get, the harder they are to wrap, the more kinks they have in them. One of the reasons I like 1/2 inch is because when you are hanging a block with a choker, sometimes you can be pulling on that choker up to twice as hard as you are your main line because of the pulley effect. Is that even a term, the pulley effect? Well, it is now. With a pulley, you can double your pull. I also have this this is a 5-foot choker. A lot of times what I use this for is I attach it to the end of my main line. This one is about to break too. I need to replace it. Then I can hook onto a log with this side. Then somewhere along the way, I can hook this onto another log and it slides up and down the cable. There are actual sliders that you can get to put on your lines, but I just use the shackle, mostly because it's what I have and it's easy to take it on and take it off. That way when you don't need to use it, you don't have all that extra hardware on there that's just in the way. When I replace this one, it does not need to be a 1/2 inch. I just started using it because it's what I had. I might actually go to a 3/8 inch for this piece. And you can get multiple ones to put on here. Instead of 5 feet, I think I'm gonna go for 6 feet. Sometimes it's just too short. I don't know if that makes sense. If not, I might have to demonstrate sometime. Now for the chains. These are 8 feet long, I think. No, maybe they're 10. We're gonna have to get out the old tape measure. They are 10 feet long, 5/16 chain, plenty strong. You don't need more than that. You could use a 3/8 chain, but 3/8 is just too heavy. I've got both styles of hooks, 2 different types on each end. Not 2 different types on each end, 1 different type on each end. That'd be silly to have 2 hooks on each end. Sometimes this style comes in handy, sometimes this style comes in handy. I got one on each end. So this way I got the best of both worlds. But if you were going to have only one type, I would put this type on both ends. Sometimes I wish I only had this type on both ends, but a lot of times this one comes in useful. These are 10 feet long because it makes a good length for strapping logs down on my flatbed trailer. But they don't have to be that long. You could get away with 8 feet, even 6 feet. The main thing I use chains for when doing this is to give variability in length when I'm positioning my block. With a choker, you're limited to the length of the choker, but with a chain, you can adjust the length. That way you can position the block just right to angle the logs around trees or whatever. I demonstrate on that in one of my latest videos, 2 or 3 videos ago. I have a set of 4 of these chains, but it's very rare that I would use more than 2. It's actually not that common that I use more than 1, but sometimes it's good to have 2 of them around, so I would get 2. Ideally, you would have a hook like this mounted somewhere. That way when you're done pulling, when you back up, your line will fall off. Then you don't drag it back with you and get it wrapped around your axle or do something to cause all kinds of problems. I don't have one on this vehicle because I don't plan on continually pulling with this vehicle. I prefer to do this with my old beater trucks. This is just the one I happen to have here at the moment, so this is what I'm using now. Another thing to have is a couple 1/2-inch shackles. These are useful for connecting chokers together, connecting lines together, or as I showed you earlier, to attach the sliding short choker to the main line. These are all the essentials, but I'll show you one more thing that's not essential, but it does come in very useful. And that is the breakaway block. As you can see, it's open on one side. The purpose of that is, once your hardware or your log gets to it, it flops off. That's useful for when you want your log to go in one direction, then when it gets there, you want it to change directions. So with that, you can pull logs around corners. I made a video about a year ago demonstrating how that works. And I've been using it over the last few videos, so you can see it in action in some of those. You don't have to have one of these. I went many years without one. I just bought this maybe 10 years ago. Consider that to be a luxury item. And they are expensive. Expect to pay with shipping somewhere around $400 for them. I got this one through Northeast Implement. So there we have it. This is all the rigging I've been using on these last few videos where I've been yarding with the pickup. 100-foot long 7/16 choker, several 1/2-inch chokers. 3 of them are 10 feet long, one's 8 foot long. This one over here, 5 feet long, but I would make it 6 feet long. 2 10-foot chains, 5/16 chain. They don't need to be 10 feet. They could be 6 or 8. 2 shackles, a 5 and a 6-inch block. 2 5-inches is really all you need. Some kind of a device to attach the line to your vehicle. And a luxury item, the breakaway block. I think that covers it. If you want to know more about how to use these, just watch some of my past videos where I put these all to work. And on my tractor at the other property, these items here, this is all the rigging I use with it. I just don't use that line because the winch has a line on it. So that's it. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.